everyone, and welcome back to the Stitch Sessions. If you're new here, I'm Karen, and I love sharing my love of crochet with you all and taking you on my journey of discovering different stitches and creating different crochet designs. So in this week's tutorial, I'm going to show you a really neat but very basic stitch that you can crochet using a basic stitch, which is your double crochet stitch. So I'm sure that this already exists, but I haven't seen it out there and I don't know what the official name for it is. I am calling it the basic ridge stitch. This is essentially the cousin of the Royal Ridges stitch, which is also known as the camel stitch. And I've actually done a project using the camel stitch for the camel stitch cardigan. So many of you like that project. If you want to know what I'm talking about, I'll leave a link for it in the description box down below. I also use this basic version, the basic ridge stitch, in my Coffee Cozy project. That's a really great and fun, very beginner friendly project. And I'll also leave a link for that down below as well. Now, many of you, if you are tuning in this week, you are probably looking for another tutorial related to last week's project, which was the lace granny square. So many of you loved that motif, and I know it's just gorgeous. So in that video, I talked about how I was going to show you how to do half of that motif. It is coming. And then I was going to show you a larger project that I'm working on it. That I'm using it for. Now, I'm still working on the project, so, but it is coming up very soon, like probably in the next few weeks or so. So stay tuned. It is on its way. So today we're going to show you this stitch, and it's also a stitch that I am looking at using in another project also coming up in the coming late spring, early summer months. Now, I have a sample here that I did using a medium 4-weight yarn, and then I used a 6mm hook for that one, which you guys know is known as a J or a 10 as well. In the tutorial, I'm actually going to use a bulkier yarn because I want to show you how, with the same stitch but just slightly different yarn weight and or different hook size, you can use the same stitch but create a slightly different look or a different effect or just simply a different size. So I thought this would be a great way to kind of do both things, show you a new stitch and show you how it looks in different yarn weights. Now, this is amazing for beginner crocheters. If you're looking to start upping the ante with your crochet, and you want to create a little bit of texture, but you don't want to be too intimidated by some of the more complicated stitches, this is an awesome one to do. Now, the way I've done this is that the ridges show up on one side and the back side is nice and flush. So this might be really nice for blanket projects. You could use this for scarves, maybe bags, something like that. Anything really you can use this stitch for. So what do you say? Let's just jump on in. Okay, so the yarn I'm going to be using is called Forever Fleece by Bernat. This came out a couple of months ago. I'm not sure if you're still going to find it because, of course, this was a winter release. But it's really soft and cushy. It is considered a super bulky number 6. Now, the content is polyester, so it's got an interesting feel to it, but it is soft and it's nice and thick. This would be really great for blanket projects or any household item project. You could certainly do hats and scarves with it, which I have done. But anyway, the sky is the limit with what you can do with it. I'm sure you can find it. I initially found this at Walmart stores. I'm not sure if you can find it at Michael's or if you're in the States, Hobby Lobby or Joann's, but Walmart is where I found it. I know you can still find it online if you're curious. So, but any bulky weight yarn will do. if you're looking to do this stitch in a bulkier yarn. And they do recommend that you use, whoops, that's not the proper hook. They do recommend that you use a 10mm hook, which I am going to use for this little sample. And 10mm is also known as an N or a size 15, okay? And of course, anytime you're working on projects, make sure that you have a pair of scissors on hand and a yarn needle to sew in your ends. And actually, you know what? This is the wrong yarn needle for the weight of this yarn. See how it's got a wide eye, but this is pretty bulky. I could probably force it through, see that? But I'm actually gonna show you yarn needle I use for really, really thick yarn. Hold on one second. Okay, so this is the yarn needle I use. Hopefully you can see that. See how it's actually got a loop and it's very, well, this one's not as flexible. I've got a different size here. See, it's kind of flexible. That is the type of yarn needle I use for really bulky yarns like that. See that? Nice and easy to go through. It's interesting, I have two sizes. This one is longer, but I find that the loop is actually a little bit smaller. Isn't that interesting? And the shorter one has a larger loop. So there you go. I found, again, you can find these at Walmart. Any craft store will have them. So basically anything like a bulky 5 and up, I use this one. And anything basically medium 4 and under, I use this one. So just a little tidbit for you. Okay, so let's get started on our stitch. So this stitch has no multiple count. You can count up as many chains as you like. So we're going to begin with a slip knot on our hook, just like that. And for this sample, I'm going to start just by chaining 12. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I've got 12 stitches. So this is the length of my project in this case. And then what you're going to do is you want to add an additional 3 chains. 1, 2, and 3. So these 3 chains are going to count as your double crochet stitch. And this 4th chain will count as the base of the stitch. So this 4th chain right here, this is the end of your 12 chains that we did. And then we have an additional 3, okay? And so then what you're gonna do is you're gonna find the 5th chain from the hook and you're just gonna place a double crochet stitch in there. Now there are different methods that I sometimes will start this row and I'll show you in the subsequent row, but because we're using bulky yarn, that chain 3 fits just perfectly, okay? So all you're gonna do for row number 1 is you're just going to place 1 double crochet into each stitch. And row number 1 doesn't really count as anything. I just consider it an establishing row. Okay, so I have finished row number 1. And so my work looks like this. So I have 12 stitches in total. That chain 3 will count as a stitch. So let's move on to row number 2, which is the first row of our 2-row repeat. So sorry, I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning. This stitch is a 2-row repeat. So row number 2, we are going to turn our work. And I'm going to show you how a lot of times I will start a row with a self-contained or a standing double crochet, I think it's called. So I did not chain 1, as you notice, I did not chain 3. I'm just going to turn my work, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right back into that very first stitch there, and I'm just going to single crochet, just like that. And some of you have seen me do this in other projects as well. So I have a single crochet, and now in a single crochet you have 2 legs. You have one on the right and one on the left. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to insert my hook into the left leg here, and I'm going to pull up a loop, and I'm going to resolve it like a single crochet. So you're basically stacking a single crochet on top of another one, which essentially gives you the height of a double crochet stitch, and it kind of fills out the space. Sometimes when you do that chain 3, it leaves a bit of a gap. So especially in this project, I like to use this method, which I call the self-contained double crochet, and we're good to go. So that's our first one. And for row number 2, we're going to kind of repeat what we did in row number 1, and that is you're just going to go into every single stitch and you are going to double crochet. And you should still have 12 stitches at the end of row number 2. Okay, row number 2 is complete. So you have something that looks like this. Look at how beautiful and cushy that yarn is. Now I want you to notice something. You'll see here, that was the chain 3 that we turned in the first row. So you can see it leaves a bit of a gap. And this one here does not leave a gap. See that? It just sits nice and cushioned in there. So that's why I like using it. So row number 2 is complete. And now row number 3 is where the fun really begins. So again, we are just simply going to turn our work. And I'm going to use that same technique of creating that first double crochet by doing a single crochet first. And then inserting into the left leg and single crocheting again. So that's my first stitch. And now we're going to use the front post double crochet stitch. And I do have a tutorial all on the front post double crochet stitch. You can check that one out, or you can just sit tight and watch me do it here. So we're going to work a regular double crochet, but instead of going into the stitch, we are going to push this post forward or to the front. So you will yarn over first, and then go in behind and through the front. Then you will pull up that loop and make sure to stretch it up a little bit. And then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops like you would with a regular double crochet. And then yarn over and pull through 2 again. And that is your first front post double crochet stitch, okay? Now, a lot of times you will see this front post used in an alternating fashion. Like sometimes you will do a front post here, but you might skip this one, then a front post, or you might do it in clusters of 2, etc., etc. In this stitch, I'm going to do it in every single stitch or around every single post all the way to the end of my row. Okay, just like that. So that's it, that's all. It's pretty easy. That's why I love this for super beginner crocheters, because it gives you the feeling of doing something a little extra. So do that all the way to the end, and then I'll show you the effect. Okay, so I'm almost done, and I have 1 stitch left. So I just wanted to show you guys this, because when you turn this over, this is the effect that you get. So by working into the front posts of this row, it pushes the top portion of the stitch of the previous row forward. And that's what gives it a full ridge. See that? So you really have a nice high texture. So even in this one, you can see that it's pushed up. Now, unlike the camel stitch, which actually does give you a similar effect where you'll see these V-like ridges, and it's kind of mimicking a little bit of that knit-like effect. The difference is with the camel stitch or the royal ridge is it actually sits a bit more flush because we're not working around the post. We're working into a different portion of the loops. And so this one gives you a much more raised texture, and that's what I love about it. So now, having said that, for your very last stitch, in order to kind of maintain this effect, we are not going to work into the front post. We are actually just going to work into the front loop here. Okay, so you're going to yarn over and you're just going to pick up this front loop. See that? And then you're going to double crochet as usual. Try not to stretch it out too much. And now when I turn my work, see how that ridge just continues right to the end? So there isn't a break in the sight line, so to speak. So when you take that out, you've got a nice even edge there. See that? I know right now it looks wonky because I've only done the first 3 rows. So basically row 2 and row 3 are the repeat. So what I would do now is I'm just going to turn my work and repeat row number 2, which is just a row of double crochet stitches. Then I will go back and do row number 3, which is the front post double crochet stitches. So I'm just going to get you started here to repeat row number 2. So I would just turn my work. And again, I'm going to start it with that self-contained double crochet. And now I'm just going to work into the regular stitches like I did before. And I should still have 12 stitches. So that was a stitch count I started with. If you're doing a longer project, obviously. Whatever the number is you started with, you still want to maintain. So that is the gist of that. See how it's extending that? So now what that does, it gives this, your ridge, a little bit more space to kind of breathe, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and just create up a little bit of a longer length to give you the full effect. It's just repeating row 2 and row 3, row 2 and row 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I have completed 9 rows, just like I did for this one here. Now look at the difference. We've done the same number of stitches and the same number of rows. And look at how vastly different the sizes can be. So a lot of times if you see something you like, but you'd like to upsize it or downsize it, experiment with the yarn weights and your hook size. So this is an example I wanted you guys to be able to see the difference. And this is so lovely and cushy. I'm telling you, if you make a nice, big, chunky, cozy couch blanket, this is the yarn. So that is the effect. You've got your ridges coming through there. Look at how pretty that is. And it is quite a raised ridge. See that? So it's going to give you some really, really cool texture. So even for those of you crochet friends that are fairly experienced, sometimes it's stitches like this that remind us, hey, sometimes I can just keep it simple and still create a really, really cool effect. Oh, and I wanted to mention one thing. With this particular stitch, you might notice that see, the project wants to curl up. And anytime you work with post stitches, that is going to happen, because what's happening is when you're working around the post, it's actually pulling it taut. So naturally, you're going to have a little bit of a curl on the edges. Do not fret. You can always fix that with some blocking. You still have pretty nice straight edges. Generally, what I would recommend is if you're going to do maybe something like a scarf or a blanket or something, you would probably want to work a nice chunky border. Once you do that, that really gets rid of that curling effect. Now, if you're working on this for a hat, for example, then that's going to solve itself, like if you're working it in the round, for example. So just a little FYI on that, because I know many of you, if you're a little newer, you might go, oh, did I do something wrong? You did not. It's just the nature of the stitch. Now, see, this one is laying a little flatter because the yarn is slightly lighter, and I can sometimes just use the heat of my hand to kind of press it, and it'll tend to stay. So this one, it's a little bulkier, so it just would need a bit more of a deeper block. But that's it, that's all. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of the nature of how it's worked. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little stitch tutorial today. Hopefully you found it fun and quick and easy, which is my goal. I want to make sure that, you know, whatever we do here on the channel, that you feel like, hey, it is doable after all. Now, if you may still have some questions, as always, please do leave them for me in the comment box down below. Or if you want to say hello, I always love that too. Say hi, leave me a comment. Many of you like to email me directly, which I adore as well. So you can send me an email at info@crochetcrafty.com. You know the drill. Come visit me on the website, crochetcrafty.com. So many wonderful goodies for you guys. We've got a monthly newsletter where I gift you a free written pattern every month. So sign up for that. It's absolutely free. There's a link to my Etsy shop for more patterns, which I am still continuing to work on because it is just me and it just takes me a little while. So I know many of you have been asking me for some patterns, and most especially a pattern for my easy breezy beach bag. I know you guys love that project. It is such a wonderful project. It came out so well. I'm really, really excited. I am currently working on that pattern and it will be released soon. I will definitely let you guys know. I know, especially as the weather is getting warmer, and you're starting to think about summer and summer activities and beach trips, you definitely want to get started on that one. So I am working on it and I will let you guys know as soon as it is released. So guys, thanks as always for joining me every week. I so love hanging out with you guys. It really just gives me such pleasure, and it's nice to know I can hang out with some crochet friends every week. And hey, come say hi to me. I'm also on the socials. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Instagram more often than I'm on Facebook, but you can find me at the Stitch Sessions. And if you are new here and you've enjoyed today's tutorial, I invite you to check out more of the tutorials we have on the channel. And so I invite you to press that subscribe button and make sure to click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when I upload a brand new video, which is every Wednesday morning. And I know many of you are excitedly awaiting the complimentary tutorial on the lacy granny motif, which it is coming. If it's not next week, it's going to be the following week. So like I said, it's very, very soon that you will see that project. So my friends, have an amazing day. Happy crocheting and take really good care of yourselves. And I will see you in next week's session. Bye-bye.